Curiel Noon has been working in San Francisco nonprofits for over 18 years, including the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and Stop AIDS Project. He is currently the Senior Director of Programs at Glide. He carved some time out of his very, very busy schedule to prepare to be here tonight. Let's get the forum started.
Tonight, we want to talk about the Tenderloin. What a lot of people don't know about the Tenderloin is that there's a rich and vibrant community here to rival any neighborhood in the world. The Tenderloin I used to talk into microphones. The Tenderloin has pioneered globally recognized movements to advance human rights and is the birthplace of genre-defining musicians, artistic trailblazers, and social justice heroes. Per block, more children live in the Tenderloin than any other neighborhood in the city. And for decades, the Tenderloin has been a place where low-income and new immigrant communities have come to attempt to fulfill the iconic American dream. In the heart of San Francisco, the Tenderloin embodies the strong community values of acceptance, inclusion, resilience, creativity, and hope. As all of us also know, the Tenderloin is also home to the most complex and seemingly intractable issues facing San Francisco: chronic homelessness, housing insecurity, mental illness, substance use, and multi-generational poverty. In this city of great opportunity, it is the most vulnerable neighborhood. 1/3 of residents live below the federal poverty line and experience the city's highest rates of chronic disease and mental illness. For many, the Tenderloin sidewalks are home. More than half of San Francisco's homeless population live as neighbors without shelter in the Tenderloin, sleeping on the sidewalks and in doorways and alleys every night. In addition, many SRO hotel residents with limited alternatives for places to simply hang out congregate outside, with the sidewalks acting as neighborhood living rooms. The Tenderloin is also home to the largest open-air drug market in Northern California, and perhaps not surprisingly, the city's hottest criminal activity. It is also a place where unmet needs for mental health treatment and supportive housing mean that mentally ill residents roam freely at risk of harm to themselves and others. High concentrations of seniors, veterans, and other vulnerable populations reside here as well.
Right.
Many unsafe and illegal behaviors are allowed to routinely take place on Tenderloin streets, but not in other more affluent neighborhoods. Current city policies and practices institutionalize this status quo and make the city complicit in maintaining the Tenderloin as a containment zone. All of these challenges negatively impact residents who are already economically and socially disadvantaged and who face vast disparities in resources and opportunities to thrive when compared to residents of other neighborhoods in the city. We believe that the Tenderloin is the most important neighborhood to shape San Francisco's future because the Tenderloin is a microcosm of the entire city. All of the challenges that we see here are playing out across San Francisco, and if, as mayor, you can implement community-informed and innovative, evidence-based solutions to the core challenges we see in the Tenderloin, the rest of the city will follow with relative ease. So let's begin with questions. As we said, we're going to start with Mark Leto. So the number one barrier to public safety in the Tenderloin is the 24-hour open-air drug market that persists here. This neighborhood is a known transaction destination, with people coming from all over the Bay Area to buy and sell drugs on a daily basis. The scope and scale of this trafficking is not supported by Tenderloin residents and wouldn't be tolerated in any other neighborhood. In your first year as mayor, what specific steps will you take to dramatically decrease drug trafficking in the Tenderloin?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. This is really an extraordinary exercise in the democratic process. I want to thank all those who have brought us together. Just to say, my first 4 years in San Francisco were spent right here in the Tenderloin at 625 Hyde Street between Post and Geary, so I feel a real foot here as home for me. As mayor of San Francisco, I will be focusing specifically and initially on ending street homelessness by 2020. And that is an important step for us to take because so much of what we see on the streets, whether it's the human waste or the syringes or all of the refuse, is a symptom, as is the drug dealing and other crime problems of homelessness. And if we are able to give folks a hand up and get folks off the street, we'll be dealing with a lot of the other problems simultaneously. So step one, we need to keep those who are in their homes in their homes. And that's why I amended the Ellis Act a few years back to exempt SROs from Ellis Act eviction, saving 12,000 of San Francisco's most vulnerably housed from eviction, and then taking steps to work diligently with all the property owners. The Department of Building Inspection, among others, has already opined that there are upwards of 1,500 available SROs right now. That's step one. I see my time's up. I'll talk more about the homeless plan as the evening goes on. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Amy Farah-Weiss. I was born in Berkeley, raised in San Jose, and moved to San Francisco in 2007, but I've been coming here since I was a young person, also playing music in different places around the city, back when I was going to UC Santa Cruz and in a band. And so I know what the Tenderloin is like because I played at Chemo's back at Poke and Pine, back in the day. And I know that these same issues that we're experiencing today are the same issues we've been experiencing for decades, right? And so before I came here tonight, I was actually asking people on the street, do you think that a new mayor coming in is gonna actually make a difference on June 5th? And let's just be real, most people don't think that a new mayor is gonna make a difference. But I'll tell you why I would make a difference. Because I have 20 years of experience working in direct service, in mental health, harm reduction, transitional housing, leadership and development. So I know how to take an issue like end homelessness or work on the drug issue that's in San Francisco right now and actually heal it at the root. So I've been working the last 2.5 years on creating safe, organized spaces for people who are currently unsheltered. And Mark's absolutely right. We have to heal that at the root, and we're going to see a lot of difference after that. But in terms of the open-air drug dealing, let's make San Francisco known as a mindful consumption and equitable access epicenter for cannabis rather than hard drugs. That's something that I've been working on for a couple of years. And so let's go ahead and take some different approaches to this issue.
Thank you. So, I'd like to remind the candidates that I know it's a short time, but you have 90 seconds to respond, and we'd like you to stay on time and stay on the TL, and please stay on the question. We're going this way. You start, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Aliotto. I have been in the Tenderloin for many years of my life. Started down here a long time ago before I was an elected official, working on homelessness and with Father Louis Vitale at the very early stages of the Gubbio project, and have been working with that ever since. Let me just say, this question is about drug dealers. It's not about homelessness.
Thank you.
Drug dealers and homelessness. Drug dealer and homelessness are two very separate issues. Homelessness is somebody. By the way, when you clap, as much as I love that you clap, I love it, but it takes away from my time, and they never give me enough time anyway. So let me go on about how near and dear to my heart. People who prey on homeless people. And the drug dealers are people who prey on the homeless people. The drug dealers need to be arrested. We need to get from the very bottom of the drug dealers to the top dog of the drug dealers who's putting out all of these drugs in our great city. This is an amazing community in the Tenderloin. Just imagine how wonderful it would be with the stopping of the drug dealing and with some medical aid for mental health, which by the way would be good all over the city. But this is a community of people that understand the soul of San Francisco. And so drug dealing is what we have to hit, not homelessness.
There's one person that understands.
I grew up right down the street on Eddy and Laguna, and sadly, drug dealing was a way of life for many of the people that I grew up with. It could have easily been my path. And what is the difference is opportunity. Why am I standing here running for mayor while so many people that I grew up with haven't had that opportunity? Part of what we have to do as a city is, yes, invest in services, is, yes, make sure that we provide the opportunity. But the other thing is, we have to have a no-tolerance policy. My grandmother believed in tough love. when it came to doing the kinds of things, sadly, that my brother did that landed him in jail, Ms. Brown didn't tolerate that. And we have to make sure we have more police officers on our streets to crack down on what we know is destroying the quality of life of our neighborhoods. Part of how we also address the issue is making sure that the social service agencies that we provide funding to, that provide opportunities for people to get employment or to do something different besides what we know exists, are easier to access than sadly what we see happening on our streets every single day. As mayor, I will make sure that the services for the community are provided, and I will also make sure that we have more police officers out of their cars and on the street walking the beats to address those issues.
Hi, good evening. My name is Richie Greenberg. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. I am glad that finally London Reed brought up the fact about the police. Now, I know that this is not a popular issue, the subject here, the police, but we cannot have enforcement. We cannot enforce the laws without the police department. I hear hissing, but please understand that until London brought up the police, we talked about that we need to cut back, we can't have the drug dealing, but enforcement doesn't happen without the police department. I support the police. We need to have community policing. We need to work with the community. We have to enforce the laws that we have to prevent the dealing. Unfortunately, this is how it works. I've lived here for 17 years. I've lived in the Richmond district, but the first couple of years I was here was in Nob Hill, and I come down often into the Tenderloin area. I'm familiar with the area here. We know what the problems are here. I know as your mayor, I will instill the three important core values of my candidacy, which are accountability, quality of life, and law and order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and it's really good to be home in the Tenderloin. And I do want to thank everyone for showing our city what an incredible neighborhood this is. This is one of the most compassionate, engaged, and active neighborhood that I've ever worked in. And I just want to thank you for all that you do every single day to make the Tenderloin healthier, safer, and stronger. And far from what people think, this is a neighborhood that likes our police officers. We work very closely with the Tenderloin Police Station, and there's a lot of initiatives that we've done over the last 7 years together to make this a safer neighborhood, but there's a lot more that we need to do. But community-led initiatives like getting rid of parking on the unit block of Turk and the 100 block of Eddy Street, to the $9 million that we invested in Bodecker Park to turn our only multi-use park from a drug haven and a prison into an amazing oasis used by our seniors, families, and children every single day, with dedicated funding to the Boys and Girls Club and the Y and our youth organizations to make sure we activate that park 7 days a week. There's a lot of work that we have to do to address public safety issues. It's partnering with our police officers, with safe passages, our volunteers that make sure every afternoon that our school children walk safely to home and their after-school programs, and investing in the social services that keep our neighborhood safer. That is how we're going to work to make the Tenderloin neighborhood safer every single day. And it's also going to be by knowing the names of the folks that you work with, whether it's your police officer or your legislative aides. Thank you very much.
So our next question, would you like to take it first? One of the most readily identifiable aspects of the Tenderloin is the proliferation of trash, drug paraphernalia, and human and animal excrement on our streets and sidewalks. Since last June, the Tenderloin CBD has collected on average more than 2,500 syringes and 30,000 pounds of trash per month. While the numbers are staggering, they don't always help us face the underlying root causes of our poor sidewalk conditions. So our question is, as mayor, what specific steps will you take, other than increasing resources for picking up trash, to make Tenderloin streets and sidewalks cleaner?
So San Francisco has invested $30 million in a move along strategy That move along strategy is $8.7 million that's going into DPW and $20.6 million that's going into SFPD just to address encampments. If we were to take that $30 million, we could change it from investing in a move along strategy to a you belong strategy. And that you belong strategy would be focused on making sure that we have safe, organized spaces for people to belong in community with reasonable agreements and responsibilities. And that's the work that I've been doing as the founder and director of the St. Francis Homelessness Challenge. I don't think throwing more money into DPW and SFPD is the solution. We need unarmed eyes on the street. A nod to Jane Jacobs, who talked about how if we have people that are on the street supporting arts and culture, if we have people on the street that are supporting mental health, like Concern, do you know the group Concern that goes around the Tenderloin and addresses crisis issues? Like We City, do you know the people that are running the porta potties out of their own pocket next to the next door shelter? These are the kind of community integrated types of projects that we need to support with that money, not a move along strategy, but a you belong strategy.
Thank you.
Clean streets, the other day we went around and cleaned about 7 blocks of in Hayes Valley, and some of the unbelievable mess that we found, some of the dangerous. It is a sanitation health issue, and that's what's amazing to me, is that DPW doesn't understand this is hurting our people on the street. Now, I say this at different events, and I've said it from the very beginning of this mayor's race. With all due respects to the head of DPW, he needs to be replaced. We need a new person at the head of DPW who understands that cleaning this city is their priority. Going out there and keeping it clean is what they're supposed to be doing, and they could do it in a month. They could do it in a month from top to bottom. Are they doing it? No. What they're doing is putting out boulders to stop people from sleeping. What has that got to do with DPW? DPW's job is to take care of the cleanliness of the city and to do the department works issues that have to do with water and with the infrastructure of the city. We need someone at the top that understands. And by the way, I don't believe that all the streets are dirty because we have homeless people. That is a ridiculous analogy to say it's dirty because of homeless people. It's dirty because a lot of people in San Francisco don't respect our city anymore, and they make it dirty, not the poor people who are living on our streets.
Last year, I introduced a resolution to propose a task force to study safe injection sites. People talk about it, but no one wanted to touch the issue because it was so controversial. And the sad reality is, we have to do something different. People are dying on our street from drug overdose. We see the needles everywhere. We see people shooting up all over the place. I know people who sadly struggle with addiction. They don't want to be out there shooting up in front of folks. And just imagine when someone is by themselves and they overdose. They often don't make it. The way that we address some of the challenges we know exist on our streets are safe injection sites. And I'm proposing that we do that, and actually last year, 30% of San Franciscans supported the idea of opening up a site. This year, a San Francisco Chamber of Commerce poll showed that 67% of San Franciscans actually support opening a site. We can't be afraid to try new, bold things. And I actually just got a grant for $500,000 to open up our first site. It's not just about money, it's not just about clean streets, it's about making sure people are being also held accountable for the conditions of our streets. Putting money in it, yes. Accountability is more important than making sure that we're out there doing the work that's necessary to clean up our streets, including safe injection sites.
So, safe injection sites, I don't entirely agree with. The reason being, have to partner it with clinics, with addiction. We need to ensure that it's not going to be just simply a den for someone to shoot up. We need to be able to treat the people for their addiction. Addiction issues are a problem. And we're not going to be able to deal with any of the Tenderloin's issues by not dealing with the addiction problem related to shooting up. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the audience to please allow the candidates to share their opinions with the crowd. We can't vote if we don't know what they actually think. We need to know what they think.
Well, I just wanted to say the same thing. We are a generous community, and we accept a lot of different types of beliefs, and we really shouldn't shout down candidates when they state their beliefs. I do support a safe injection site. I think the question is in what neighborhood, and this neighborhood has accepted a lot of services, and I just want to thank this neighborhood for always saying yes to drop-in centers and shelters, but we need to make sure that these services are evenly distributed throughout San Francisco. It is not just the Tenderloin that is going to take care of all of the worst problems here in San Francisco. Now, street cleaning. This was a major issue when I ran in 2010, and I knocked on almost all of your doors. Thank you for opening it. And trash and feces was one of the top issues in this neighborhood, and I worked for several years with all of you to bring in the Tenderloin Pit Stops program, which we started in 2014. And I know you didn't want just another J.C. Decaux bathroom without a monitor, so we made sure that we created jobs by creating publicly monitored restrooms here in the neighborhood. And we saw a 60% decrease in steam cleaning requests after we just put in the first 3 pit stops in the neighborhood, and we have to expand that program. People need a place to go with dignity and respect, and you should not have to step over someone else's feces on your way to the park or to school or after school programs. We also need to double the number of street cleaners here in San Francisco. We have 285 street cleaners. Hong Kong has 6,000. And of the 285, only 150 are permanent full-time jobs. We should be expanding street cleaning. We absolutely need to do more of these services in our neighborhood and throughout the city.
Thank you.
Clearly, the status quo is not working. Whether we're talking about dirty streets or about drug sales on the streets, and to finish my answer from the first question, yes, drug dealing must be met with law enforcement because they're feeding the addiction of those who are struggling with an illness, and we've got to interrupt that connection. With regard to the mess on our streets, yes, we should be doing more, but if we don't address the real cause of the dirt on the street, which is the fact that we have human waste and refuse and the needles and the syringes, because 3,500 folks are living where they never should be living, which is on our streets and sidewalks. We need to provide homes for those folks, and we can do that. We can make use of those SRO units. We've got 1,000 people every night on a waiting list just to get into a shelter bed. A very unwelcome place where you can't bring your pet, your partner, your belongings, and still 1,000 people want to get off the streets. And if we can do that, there'll be a lot less human waste on the streets. And so that DPW doesn't have to spend $30 million a year cleaning up the sidewalks only to come back 2 days later and clean it up again. That's a waste of money. Let's reinvest it in housing people, and that will automatically make sure we have less waste on our streets. Thank you.